Welcome back to Giants Pregame Live, presented by Wendy's. Final day for the fans to get a look at Major League Baseball at Oracle Park in 2024. Cardinals and Giants. Only the sixth meeting this season between these two because of the revamped schedules. And the Cardinals, for what it's worth, lead the season series 4-1. Let's get our inside pitch. And for that, we take you out to Oracle Park and welcome in Giants insider Alex Pavlovich. Alex, the Giants with a new addition on the roster today, Trevor McDonald. First of all, you probably have to be a real hardcore Giants fan to know much about Trevor McDonald. So can you tell Giants fans about him and about the story about him getting to the ballpark today? Starting lineup for the Giants today brought to you by Ford, Yaz Encarnacion, Wade, Matt Chapman, by the way, not highlighted, but this is going to be game number 153 for him as a starter for the Giants. That's the most in a decade since Hunter Pence played 161 back in 2014. Then Conforto, Fitzgerald, Wisely, Casali, and of course at the bottom of the lineup, Grant McCray, the rookie, trying to get his final taste of the season. Let's talk more about Tyler Fitzgerald, gentlemen. The Giants certainly like what they've seen out of him. The speed on the base paths really paid dividends again last night.
Yeah, he's athletic. I mean, that's what really stood out to me this year with Tyler Fitzgerald. I mean, he came up to the big leagues and weren't quite sure what we were getting here.
That's what the Giants inevitably want. They want havoc on the bases, and you need to play clean defense, and that's what he's brought for the most part since he's been called up.
Yeah, well, he's no doubt going to go into the offseason knowing what he didn't know about being a major leaguer, and that's a big thing to help you kind of get ready for year number 2. We're taking a timeout. Don't go anywhere. We are 23 minutes and change from the start of the season finale for the Giants at Oracle Park. More Wendy's Pregame Live after this. And we'll bring you the NL West standings on the final day of the season for our Sportsnet Central update, and how the Dodgers and the Padres, they know they're going to the postseason. Arizona probably won't know their fate until tomorrow. There's a possibility, in fact, more like a likelihood, the Mets and Braves play a doubleheader tomorrow. And the playoff scenarios for that are kind of mind-boggling. But that's what's going on in the NL West and the NL Wild Card. As for the Giants, a win today puts them at 500 for the season. If they win by exactly 1 run, their run differential will be exactly 0. That's only happened 2 other times in Major League history. And Shawn, one of the 2 times, the team that did it followed it up with a trip to the World Series the next year.
They sure did. It was the 83 Padres. 84 Padres went to the World Series. So it's either that path potentially, or it's the 23 White Sox who are 16 games under 500 the next year. So I think if you're the Giants, you'd prefer to be the Padres version. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't get any more average or mediocre than that, right? It's a season. If they win by 1 today, they'll be 81-81 with a 0 run differential. Like you said, 3 times in the history of baseball that's happened. A lot has to happen for that to happen today, but if it does, it'll be interesting to see what happens next year.
It is the Giants. A 1-run win is very possible.
Yes.
George, you know, we joke about it a little bit, but I mean, 81-81. I know Shawn talked about it quick at the top of the show. In the clubhouse, is that even being mentioned, or guys just, hey, let's just go play this last game? Great to win, but I don't think they're getting hung up on whether or not they're 81-81, are they?
I don't think so. I mean, I was going to use average as opposed to mediocre. I don't know why. I think that vernacular sounds a little bit better than mediocre. But you know what? Everyone right now, I guarantee you, walking in that clubhouse, you have bags packed everywhere. Everyone's head being pulled in a million different positions. But as soon as 12:05 comes and that first pitch by Hayden Birdsong gets delivered, then you're trying to win the game. And regardless of how anybody actually really feels about it, on paper and guys going into this offseason, you much would rather have 81-81 because you can say that you didn't have a losing season. And that's just one of those things that you take a little bit of pride in, or at least you should, not having a losing season. And the Giants have, over the past several seasons, had losing seasons. So it's something that you can you know, at least take in with some confidence into the offseason. But 81-81 and a 0 run differential, that's some sort of thing to end up 0-0 to 0 at the end.
The ultimate 500. Just because it was a season that was average or mediocre doesn't mean there weren't memorable things. And we have the best of the Estes's besteses for this year.
Well, we're going to go, yeah, we got 4 different things. The best moment this year, in my opinion, was Rick Whitfield hosting MLB. First time ever. It's where baseball started in the Negro Leagues. It was 99-year-old Bill Gleason throws out the first pitch. Willie Mays, who had passed earlier in the week, so that game ended up carrying more weight in that game. You had a lot of ex-athletes, current athletes, Jeter, Bonds, Reggie Jackson. It was raw, it was real. It was not easy for some, but it was definitely a very memorable moment for a lot of people, especially the ones that attended the game. So that's my best moment of the year. This is my best at-bat of the year. Elliot Ramos, 104 splash hits, all by left-handed hitters until this one right here. Elliot said that was one of his goals. He knew he had Oppo juice, but he didn't think it was going to be possible until the 105th splash hit off the bat of Elliot Ramos at 104 miles an hour, 30-degree launch angle, 89 feet high and 390 feet far, and then Dave kept the ball. Give it back. And then the best defensive play of the year. This was an unbelievable play by Matt Chapman. It saved the game. The amount of skill that play requires is ridiculous. Anticipation, quickness, concentration, and then arm strength. The game was on the line. He had to make a good throw. Nice pick by Lamont Wade Jr. to seal the deal. Best defensive play of the year with Matt Chapman. And then the best pitching performance this year. That's an easy one. Blake Snell's no-hitter. He had thrown 201. He had made 201 starts before this game without getting into the ninth inning. And not only did he get into the ninth inning, he threw a no-hitter, and it was a pretty unbelievable. Other than the ice
drilling him,
the ice bucket drilling him in the back of the head. It was a pretty unbelievable performance by Blake Snell, and he had two back-to-back starts where he was pretty historic, where he threw. I can't even read because my eyes are terrible. But he had thrown 15 innings. He gave up 2 hits.
And punched out the world.
And punched out the world in those 2. So I think 26 strikeouts. So back-to-back starts. He capped it off with a no-hitter, his first of his career. So those are my best. Those are my 4 best moments of the year.
George, anything stand out for you from the season?
Well, I mean, just the youngsters coming up. I think Elliot Ramos coming up, establishing himself, and we've gotten a lot of production because earlier in the season, I know it's been a long one, obviously, but the Giants dealt with a lot of injuries, and there were a lot of players that came up and had to really establish themselves and help this team attempt to get to the postseason. Obviously, they fell short, but you got guys like Wisely and Fitzgerald, and we had Matos that did a great job for a little while there. Elliot Ramos established himself as a guy who's going to be here for a long time. But then you had the youngsters on the pitching side of things, too. You had Ryan Walker establish himself as a bona fide closer. Kyle Harrison and Birdsong really established themselves in the big leagues this year. Harrison hitting his innings limit more than he's ever had in professional baseball. So there were a lot of things that were fun to root for and to be excited about this season.
Well, one more chance for players to make an impression. You never know what's going to happen in game 162. And let's get to the odds presented by Grayton Resort and Casino. The Giants favored to win their home and season finale, -125 on the money line, and the over-under 7.5 runs today combined for these two teams. Time to get you to the ballpark and get you out for the first pitch. It's coming up in just over 14 minutes here on NBC Sports Bay Area. A gorgeous day out at Oracle Park. Let's get to Wendy's on the Hill. Your starting pitching matchup for this one, Michael McGreevy for the Cardinals against Hayden Birdsong. A chance to finish his season over 500 if he can get a win here today. He would be 6-5 on the year. And George Kontos, let's talk a little bit about Mr. Birdsong. He's been pretty good in this month of September, especially the last 2 starts, 2 straight wins.
Yeah, the team has won his last 2 starts, and he's recorded the win in them as well. Obviously, the month of September has been a lot better for Hayden Birdsong than August was, with an ERA over 8 in the month of August. But his home ERA is a run and a half better than his road ERA. So that's obviously a positive since they're pitching here at Oracle Park. But I think that Hayden has a lot to prove, not only to the organization, but to himself. And today could go a long way by leaving a really good taste for him in his offseason. The stuff is plus. We know that. That high-octane fastball, 95 to 97, 98 miles an hour. Very good changeup, very good curveball. The fastball command is what's really going to make him take the next step in his career as a Major League Baseball player. Getting to the big leagues, while as difficult as it is not the hardest part. Staying in the big leagues is what's the most difficult part. And Hayden Birdsong's fastball command is what's going to dictate his career trajectory moving forward.
And Shawn, I know you said you wanted to step away. Pitchers and catchers reported 229 days ago, so that's a long time. But what is the right amount of time to step away, and when do you really start working on the things for next season?
Usually, I mean, I would take a month off, and then I'd ramp things back up in November. You know, obviously, unless you go to the playoffs, I would take a month, and then you get back into the gym, and you get on the mound around January, and you start getting after it, get your arm in shape. But no, I think he can take into the offseason this year that he belongs in the big leagues, that he can be a big league pitcher. He can be successful at the big league level. He's got the ability to punch guys out. He's got the stuff. There's no question about it. But like George said, it really comes down to fastball command. We know he has the breaking stuff to go with that. When he gets ahead in the count, he's a lot more effective. You could say that across the league, and I think that's the key for him. Limit the amount of walks, get ahead in the count, and go to work with the off-speed stuff.
Well, it'll be fun to see what he does in his finale for his rookie season out at Oracle Park. Let's welcome in now the gentleman who will call the game for you here on NBC Sports Bay Area with the changeup, Kruk and Kuip. Guys, I know, having called the NBA for 10 years, the last game of the season is always so jarring because you wake up the next day as a broadcaster and you're like, okay, what do I do now? I've been doing this for the last, 7, 8 months. What is that like for you guys to wake up tomorrow morning?
Well, it's a lot like that. I mean, fortunately, there's still baseball for another month. So we get to go home and we get to watch that baseball. And the morning show that we do a couple times a week keeps us on. But, by around November 11th, I'll get this phone call from Kuip, and you know what he'll say? We need a game to do. That's how long it takes for him to be bored and me to be bored. So it's great, but it's short-lived.
Yeah, it is good to get away from it for a little while, but I mean, after a while, you just kind of miss. This is a happy place. You kind of miss coming here, seeing everybody, and then there's a certain date where spring training just can't come soon enough.
Guys, obviously the bags are packed. Everyone's kind of pulled in a million different directions until 12:05 when that first pitch is thrown. But there are still a lot of these young guys and veterans alike that want to prove something today. Hayden Birdsong being one of them. What's the mentality like for the next 2.5 hours while this game's being played by the guys in between the white lines?
Well, the old saying in baseball is the last thing they remember is the last thing you did. So you want to leave with a good taste in your mouth and, more importantly, a good taste in their mouth. So a lot at stake. I mean, when you're a young guy and you're pushing to be a part of a rotation next year, a part of a pitching staff, I mean, this is a big moment for you. So it's important that you take advantage of those. And the same thing for a young hitter.
Yeah, I mean, plus, you got to remember, you're getting paid to win. You're getting paid to perform. You're an entertainer. You're going to have a great, great crowd here today. Don't disappoint them.
Hey, guys, you've seen a lot of baseball this year. Real quick, what was your favorite memory from the 2024 season?
Go ahead, Mike, go.
Okay, well, Elliot Ramos going opposite field into McCovey Cove was a big highlight.
I mean, you saw turnaround stories this year, just within the microcosm of the season, what the Tigers have done to get into the postseason. All it takes is catching a little wave. Real quick, George, I know we're going to get to K's with Kontos, but I want to ask you one more question about McDonald. We talk about, the impression he makes on Bob Melvin on the team. How about the impression that he now has had, cast on him by having a chance to know, I put on a big league uniform, I worked 3 great innings, and he's now got that confidence all off season.
And this is what we talked about leading up to the last game of the year, right? He would have watched a football game yesterday, never even thought of anything, but instead he comes and flies to San Francisco, and his whole offseason he's going to be over the moon and in the clouds because he's a big leaguer now. He's got an ERA of 0 in the big leagues. He has provided himself with the confidence to know that, hey, I can go out on that big league mound and I can hold my own. And it just is going to make his offseason that much more memorable. I hope it makes him work that much harder because he's gotten that small little taste of what being a big leaguer is like. Walking into that clubhouse, seeing the spread this morning, seeing all the things that you never really think about when you're in the minor leagues, but you get to experience all of this stuff. And I think that he's definitely over the moon right now in what he's done today.
And in a couple weeks, he's going to get a bigger check, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though it's a day. Even though it's a day, it's significant. Yeah. And he missed a pretty good game last night, too.
Yeah, he did.
He's from Mobile, Alabama, so I'm assuming he's a Alabama fan.
I think he was okay with the result, even if he didn't get to see it in person.
He caught it on the plane.
All right, I delayed it. Let's get to K's with Kontos, and this is more of a season perspective. You're looking back a little bit at a pretty good day for Blake Snell.
Yeah, we did Estes Besties in the pregame show, and I picked out what I thought was one of the best pitching performances of the year, no other than Blake Snell when he had his 15 punchies through 6 innings. I mean, he was absolutely absolutely dominant. And this was during a stretch of the starters punching the world out. Kyle Harrison was striking everybody out. Hayden Birdsong had just come off of his career high the week before in Colorado with 12 punchies. And then Blake Snell went out and did this against the Colorado Rockies, where he had absolutely everything working. And after this start, this is when I think he got himself the confidence, because not long after this, he went and he threw his no-no. So it was a fantastic run for him. I hope that we see him back in a Giants uniform next year, because it got awfully fun to watch him towing the mound every 5 days in the second half, with everything coming out of that left arm being plus.
I'm pretty sure Giants fans would agree. I don't know that the optimism is super high, but boy, everybody would love to see him wearing the orange-black again next season. That is for sure. And you know what? With the youngsters coming up and Hayden Birdsong and, you know, a guy like McDonald, and there's a lot to be thinking about for the future with this Giants team, especially with the rotation.
The rotation, I mean, that's what Giants baseball has been. From the history of us winning, you've had good pitching, you've had good defense, and you've had timely hitting. Unless a guy named Barry Bonds was up at the plate. But, you know, there's a lot. If Blake Snell does find himself in a new uniform next year, and I think a lot of people would like to see him in the black and orange again, there's another free agent by the name of Corbin Burns who's going to be available as well, who he would be, I wouldn't even call it a consolation prize, but he'd be another guy that I would love to see right at the top of a rotation with Logan Webb. So there are some people that I think could really help this ball club with the pitching dominance that we have come to expect from San Francisco Giants teams. That would be really fun to watch at Oracle Park next year.
All right, we're going to take another time out here on this edition of Giants Toyota Post-Game Live, but much more ahead. We will talk more about the man on the hill. Hayden Birdsong was impressive today. And then a little bit later, what's the future hold for Camilo Doval? That's all ahead. Our River Rock Casino daily jackpot, Hayden Birdsong, he was dialed in early on in this game. I mean, he was unhittable for much of the first 5 innings, and then it kind of fell off a little bit. But how about 11 strikeouts through 4 1/3 today?
He was electric today. I mean, obviously, when you're punching out that many guys, your stuff is good. And we know that his stuff is good, but it's a matter of command. Today, he did it a little bit differently. The curveball usually is the pitch he goes to strike guys out. Today, it was more a fastball and slider. He got 6 outs with the slider, and they were all strikeouts. And the combination of the fastball and the slider, he threw 72% of the time. So he really rode those 2 pitches. He punched out the side in 2 consecutive innings. You know, I think with him moving forward, you know, one of the things that he has to work on, it's not something you're going to work on in the offseason. It's just something you're going to work on, you know, maybe a little bit when you're throwing your sides and you're getting your arm ready for next spring. But come spring training next year, the focus has to be more fastball command, right? Because if you look at the one thing that he didn't do as well as you'd like to see, and it's the walks. It's just, it's working behind a count. He gave up a lot of hard contact this year, and that's because he falls behind in a lot of counts, and he's got to come to hitters, and then they're ready for it. But he threw 72 innings pitched in the big leagues, and he walked 43 batters. So that's too many. Still struck out 88. So that's a positive, right? You know you can strike guys out. It's just limiting walks. And you like the fact that he threw 129 total innings pitched this year. So that's something that he can build on going into the winter, and next year maybe bump that up to 150. But he has to be very proud of the way that he pitched this year. You saw some really impressive games, as you talked about, the 12 strikeout performance in Colorado, I might add, which is a very difficult place to pitch. And he checked that box that he knows he can pitch in Colorado now. He knows he can get guys out of the big leagues. He knows he can get tough lineups out. He's pretty much done really well in a lot of different areas, and he knows what he needs to improve on. That's what I like. After he's interviewed for games, he's always very, he always reflects on his outing and what he needs to work on. And I think that, and he's hard on himself. And you like guys like that, because they're going to be those guys that are continue to work to get better and improve their craft. So I like what I saw at Hayden Birdsong. I like the way he goes out, and I like the way he competes. I'm excited to see him in a Giant uniform next year. I think that he's got a spot in the rotation, unless they go out and sign a bunch of guys, you know, a bunch of free agent pitchers. But I think that you could probably pencil him in next year.
George, I know you talked about, you know, walking away, and Shawn, you said take a month off. For you guys, what was it like, you know, when you did start ramping up? Was it just, going to your park near your house where you live and getting into, seriously, I don't think the fan at home knows what that's like to ramp up before, you go to Arizona, even if you go there early.
Well, let me tell you what you don't do in Chicago. You're not in December or January going outside and playing catch because it's absolutely freezing. But everyone's different, and you have to find the routine that works for yourself. I didn't like Shawn mentioned, he would start maybe getting off the mound again in January. I didn't like taking that long of a time off because I felt like I would lose the rhythm that I had created throughout the course of a full season. So what I would do is, if it was a playoff year, it was great, and you just take a little bit less time off. But let's just say you weren't going to the playoffs and the season ended right around now. I would take the month of October off for the most part, maybe do, some outside stuff, do a yoga class or whatever, spend as much time outside in the fall, golf, whatever it is. And then November, you start getting back in the gym, starting to hit it hard, get strong for the upcoming season, because you can't really build in the season. You have to create your strength and everything that you're going to need, your endurance in the off season, so that you can use that and it lasts you throughout the course of a 6-month season, which is really 8 months because of spring training and all that you have to do. But I liked playing catch and getting my arm going again from November. And it wouldn't be all out, throwing everything as hard as I could. But I like to feel my arm move, and I like to get the rust off a little bit earlier because I didn't like feeling like I had to retrain my arm path. Because you forget when you don't do it. Your body, it's a muscle memory, but even the smallest difference in an arm action or a separation coming off the rubber can make a big difference 60 feet, 6 inches away. And I always wanted to have the consistency in my delivery. And what that translates to for a guy like Hayden Birdsong, for example, that fastball command, we saw today he didn't use as many curveballs, 13 swings on his slider, 12 of them were swing and misses. That's how good both of his breaking balls are, his stuff in general. But for him to have success consistently at the major league level, mentally in between the ears, he's got it. It's just having the consistency in his delivery to locate those fastballs to all 4 quadrants.
My arm didn't stop hurting until January. That's why I had to wait. I had to wait for the pain to go away in my shoulder. And I always dealt with the shoulder stuff, so that was why I waited so long. But I think everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah.
A lot of guys go to these group settings where you work out with a bunch of other guys, sometimes from other teams. Arizona has a bunch of those. You have a lot of guys that go to Arizona in the winter for obvious reasons. It's nice. You can be outside a lot more. But I like to be more group format. It was motivating for me. Some guys like to go do it on their own, and get after it on their own. But there's so many group programs now and people that are training athletes that's where a lot of these guys go, especially down in Arizona. I don't know. You even heard, I think, who was it today? Ramos said he's going to go down to Arizona for a little bit after the season.
Webby says he sees all those guys down there,
Webby goes down there, yeah. They're all over the place, where these guys go work out, and there's some great programs, and that's why, that's why you get involved in those. But everybody kind of has their own program.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of time between it, but it'll come in the blink of an eye. It'll be here before you know it. All right, Giants lose today, 6-1, the final in the season finale. Let's take you into the Giants clubhouse for some reaction right now.
It was great. Obviously, I didn't want to give up 3 runs every day.
Hayden Birdsong following his outing this afternoon. Let's get to the odds brought to you by Grayton Resort and Casino. And we told you that the Giants were favored in this one. If you took the underdog, well, you're probably not a Giants fan, but you might be happy because you won a little cash. And the over-under right there. How does Vegas do it, and how does Grayton do it? It's always right there. These numbers are unbelievable. All right, we're taking another timeout. Don't go anywhere. Alex Pavlovich will join the show. We'll talk a little Camilo Doval and also Matt Chapman when we return here on Giants Toyota Post-Game Live. Well, Matt Chapman did start his 153rd game of the season for the Giants today, the most since Hunter Pence started 161 back in 2014. And then defensive substitution in the 3rd inning so that he could get an ovation from the Oracle Park crowd, and they certainly expressed their love for him. Alex Pavlovich, our Giants insider, marking it on Twitter about Casey Schmidt coming in, and Chapman a 791 OPS with 27 homers and 18 defensive runs saved, nearly twice as many as the next closest third baseman. So, yeah, Chapman, we all expected him to be able to come and play that hot corner really well defensively, and he did just that. Let's get to our inside pitch and bring in the man who penned that tweet. Alex Pavlovich joins us now from Oracle Park. And, Alex, let's start off talking about Matt Chapman, because they got the deal out of the way. We know he's going to be here for a while. And really, you saw him at the end of the game take the microphone from Logan Webb. It seems like he's more than ready to take a big-time leadership role with this team.
Yeah, I think both those guys, and that is part of the appeal of that contract for the Giants, is they have one guy on the pitching side now. They have one guy in the hitter's room, two guys that they believe will be leaders for this group. I think both those guys right now, they are turning into recruiters. They both want to recruit in the offseason, and both have done it in the past. So I think that's their next step. Matt has a baby who just arrived a couple weeks ago. Logan has one coming in a few days. So it's going to be a busy offseason for both of them in that respect. But I think both of them are eager after this to kind of put this season behind them and lead the Giants into a better place.
Alex, I want to ask you about Camilo Doval. Obviously, this year wasn't quite the year that I think he would have drawn up. There was some talks and maybe some speculation of a potential extension in spring training before the season started for him that obviously was not signed. What does the future look for him, and what does he need to do to come into spring training ready next year?
I think from what I've heard just talking to people around him and people on this staff is they feel he really just needs to get away for a couple months and just get away from what really was the first difficult season of his professional career. It's been strange for him at times. He was rushed to the big leagues for good reason. They needed him, and he became their closer pretty quickly and never really struggled, which made it difficult for him maybe to focus on some of the little parts of the game, because he could always go out there and get out of any jam he was in. But he did struggle this year, and all those little things, holding runners, fielding his position, just throwing more strikes, those things caught up to him. So I think he needs to get away for a couple months and come in next season with a fresh outlook. The stuff is still there. The stuff is still as good as just about anybody in Major League Baseball. So he can be a real weapon for him next year, but just needs to wash this one off.
Hey, Alex, typically moves that are non-player related happen more sooner than later. We saw that with Gabe Kapler last year being let go the Friday before the last series. When can we expect to hear one way or another about Farhan?
I think in the next, I would say 48 hours, but I think it's less than that. I mean, Tuesday morning, Giants officials are scheduled to meet with the media, and we don't know yet who is going to talk, but we do expect a resolution one way or the other before then. And frankly, I'd be a little surprised if Farhan was part of that group. I think he has, not felt very safe the last few days, and there's been a lot of chatter internally the last few days. I don't think any decision has been relayed. But yeah, they have, I think, a couple days here to make that decision. And one way or the other, either he has to be there on Tuesday explaining what went wrong and what the future looks like, or it'll have to be his bosses who made a decision to go in a different direction, and they would have to sit there and explain what a search will look like, and similarly what the future looks like. But I would say tomorrow is probably going to be a pretty big day for the Giants, and they have some decisions to make, and they have to make those known publicly.
All right, Alex Pavlovich, our Giants insider. Great work all season, Alex, although I know you're not exactly going on vacation right now. The next couple of days are going to be busy for you as well, and everybody will be paying attention from what your reports are on the Farhan Zaidi watch, and take a look at some of the offensive statistics and the ranks from this season, and it leaves a lot to be desired, fellas. A lot of room for improvement.
This is one of those things where you look at it, the tied for everything in the second half of Major League teams, and that's not where the ball club wants to be. I mean, the runners in scoring position was something that just haunted them all year, and not that they didn't play well all year, but they were very inconsistent. A lot of that had to do with some injuries. They didn't have a consistent lineup on the field for the majority of the first half, and it's very difficult to get into the swing of things and consistently play well when guys are moving all over the place. So the injury bug definitely got him in the first half, but those are definitely numbers that I think they expect to drastically improve upon come the 2025 campaign.
Yeah, I think, talking to Pat Burrell about the offense, it came down to situational hitting for them this year. And I think that really where it starts is down in the minor leagues. Yeah. In player development and really preaching situational hitting, because a lot of these guys that we saw this year, and we saw a lot of young kids come up and hit offensively. They're just not taught that. And so when they get to the big league level, it's really hard to learn at that level, right? You got to start teaching from the ground up, and that's the bottom levels on up, what it means to situational hit, right? How to have a two-strike approach, put the ball in play. And we just didn't see enough of that this year. And because of that, like you said, runners in scoring position was abysmal. And that could have been the difference in this team being a playoff team.
Yeah, extending at bats to get a pitch you can handle. I mean, it's all part of it. And hopefully the Giants will be able to get that solved because, as you said, George, being in the bottom half is not going to get done, even if you have a great pitching staff. When we come back, a trip to the highlight zone as we put the wraps on the 2024 season. Back here in Giants Post-Game Live, brought to you by Toyota, as well as Mancini's Sleep World and our Mancini's Highlight Zone. These are from the season, guys. Some of the best plays of the year. And how about Elliot Ramos going Oppo Taco into McCovey Cove? Had never been done before.
Yeah, Oppo Juice, as he likes to say. Yeah, 105th splash hit ever. The only one that ever was hit by a right-handed batter, and he was able to do it.
And best of all, the ball was collected by Dave.
Give it back, Dave.
Not that Dave. This Dave would have given it back.
I would have given it back. How about Matt Chapman? We talked about how good he played the hot corner. How about this play here? And it was pivotal in the Giants getting a win.
Hands down, like the best third baseman in the big leagues, obviously. As you saw, 18 defensive run saves. The next closest guy to him is at 10. But he was as advertised. 4 gold gloves, a couple platinum gloves. They're in his parents' closet. Hopefully when he can get into his house and bring him in his office, whatever it is. But he had a great year defensively.
And then, of course, the creme de la creme, the no-no by Blake Snell in Cincinnati.
Yeah, first time in Cincinnati. That's impressive. That's Great America's Small Park, as we like to call it. Good place to hit, and he throws his first no-hitter. Gets it in the 9th inning for the first time, and then gets bonked on the head by the cooler.
we were on the receiving end of a bad one there. Again, remember Homer Bailey when he did it to us there?
That's right. Homer Bailey did one. First one since 2015. Chris Heston, how can we forget?
Yep.
In New York.
There was a lot to like about the year. Not finishing the way anybody wanted, but, you know, you got to see some young guys. You got to see all the walk-off wins. And unfortunately, you know, we lost a legend along the way, but the Giants did a great job of honoring the legacy.
Couple legends.
Of Willie Mays. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and so, you know, this is a franchise that takes care of their own, and we saw that on display. We also had the 10th anniversary of the 2014 World Series. That was a nice weekend as well. But, guys, it's been a whole lot of fun. And how many days now? 229 was the last one. What do we got? About 136 days.
That's
going to go
too
by
much
in the
math
blink,
for me,
it's a blink of an eye.
For everybody here at NBC Sports Bay Area, I'm Dave Benz saying so long. Enjoy the offseason, everybody.